Hi everyone, my name is Chloe. Today I'm going to be making a video on a bit of a heavy topic because I'll be discussing my thoughts on the recent revelations around P-Diddy, sexual violence, human trafficking, and why prison is not the answer. So before I get into this topic, who is P-Diddy? Sean Diddy Combs, also known as P-Diddy, is an American rapper and producer most known for being the founder of Bad Boys Records and known as a figurehead for hip-hop in the 1990s until this day. He is also associated with launching the careers of Faith Evans, Mace, and the notorious B.I.G. P. Diddy throughout his career, though, has been no stranger to controversy. He has had an image of being quite exploitative and sleazy in terms of not paying his artists. Now we have allegations of sexual assault with so many people coming forward and sharing their experiences with P. Diddy post Cassie, highlighting the years of abuse and SA and mistreatment that she faced at the hand of P. Diddy. So what I wanted to talk about briefly in this video is, why is someone like P. Diddy able to exist? What does this say about our society? You would have seen recently that P. Diddy was arrested in Manhattan. His trial will take place May 2025. Sexual violence is a phenomenon which occurs across society. And I think that Diddy's behavior is a reflection of the power that men are allowed to accumulate in the world, which is further cemented by his wealth. We see in the court documents that the charges being brought or the claims being made about Diddy legally, the use of blackmail, the use of threatening and silencing victims. This is something that he would not have been able to do to the scale without the money. Even in terms of the way that he treated Cassie, the abuse, the physical abuse was caught on camera in a Los Angeles hotel. We never saw this footage until now. And I think as an anti-capitalist, I cannot have this conversation without talking about capitalism. And I think that such difference in social position is wrong. Nobody should be allowed to accumulate that amount of wealth. Then as a feminist, as a black feminist, how SA is a reflection of control, the domination, how it reflects gender relations. And having worked in the Vogue sector briefly, I realized the prevalence of these behaviors and how much violence against women is a part of the status quo. It is a social norm, and that it is a part of our lives. It is something that we all have experienced to some degree. And this is something that we can also talk about in the UK context with the YouTuber Young Philly, who is currently being charged with rape and grievously bodily harm in Australia. And anytime these incidents take place, I feel that we are reminded that these very serious situations are seen as entertainment rather than a reflection of a societal problem that we desperately need to address. Boundaries, sexual boundaries, and pushing up against someone's boundaries as a human being is not acceptable, point blank, regardless of gender. But there is definitely something to be said around how women's bodies are viewed and how men are socialized to view, interact, and treat women's bodies. We can't be naive to think that this is the only example of such power abuse taking place right now in terms of the young fillies or the Diddies. There are people doing this all over the world, whether or not they're part of the celebrity class or not. And attitudes towards sexual violence and survivors, the scrutiny, the harshness, these ideas around a perfect victim, which the majority of people will not meet, victim blaming, the tricking and gold digging narratives, and the police, for example, in the Howard situation with, I think his name is Al Fayed, he had a policeman who was threatening his victims. Once again, we can see how that is a part of the fabric of how things are. Moving on, conversations around homophobia and the conveniently forgotten male survivors have been taking place. There also is this fascination from straight people of outing, of laughing and not understanding the severity, even with conversations of, oh, that celebrity was involved, or that person, that rather than actually putting two and two together and seeing that this person might have been abused, it's, oh, that there's someone that's hiding, that they're pretending to be straight. Let's undercover this. And it reflects homophobia. It reflects a hatred of the LGBT plus community. And I do think within black malehood, this expectation for black men to be hyper masculine, to be or exist in the world in a particular way, ties to sexuality. The treatment of male survivors, I also saw this within a BBC documentary recently. Mike Jeffries, the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, there have been men that came forward to the BBC and spoke about their experiences of, I don't know how much detail I can go into on YouTube in terms of the nature of the abuse that they faced, but how they were treated, how they are viewed because of their perpetrators being men. So what do we do when there are perpetrators, when there are people who in our communities who act this way? Is prison the solution? To me, I don't think prison is the solution. And I'm going to touch on that briefly, delving into the world of abolitionism very lightly. And I do think that we all have a responsibility to think about why such behaviour exists. We might see the nature versus nurture debates, particularly in the world of true crime, which has its own issues. And I lean more towards the socialization. I actually think that socialization is a key part of behaviors, and sending someone to prison that has committed the crimes that is quite clear that he has done, and we can see the severity of that, does not address a world that continues to reproduce these issues, where victims, survivors will continue, or people will continue to face behaviour at the hands of people like Diddy. And who profits from prison? Who profits from incarceration? Who benefits from these ideas that it's just good and bad people, and the bad people should just be locked up? That is overly simplistic. And violence, sexual violence, SA, is just seen as a ticking time bomb. Something that some of us will just experience. And I think that, as Angela Davis touches on in her book, are prisons obsolete? Sexual violence is something that people face in prison also. The harm is further perpetuated in prisons. That has to be said. And I think in the world of Diddy, there have been jokes made about that as well. Yeah. And I also feel as a black woman, that it is extremely damaging to relying on prison frames the threat of violence, the threat of sexual violence that we face as inevitable, but the behaviors that lead to that, this idea that the access to women and femmes' bodies is just swept under the rug. We see that also in terms of the lesphobia that women and femmes face from men, when a man might hit on them and say that they're interested in them, but they say that they don't date men. The violence that they face. And just to touch on the Angela Davis point, the term she uses is state-sanctioned sexual assault. But prison definitely reproduces harm. And I just kind of wanted to touch on why I do not think that prison is the answer, because it does not address the world that creates Diddy. It just pushes the problem under the rug, and some of us in the society who are more likely to face a variety of different types of violence are just essentially left to fend for ourselves, or are not really given any faith that things will change. So I think it's important that we do not get lost in all these speculations, that we're sensitive to the survivors, the victims of abuse, of SA, who are having to see the way that people are talking about these recent situations, whether it be young Philly, etc., so carelessly. And I feel that I'm still learning about this topic, particularly when it comes to abolitionism. But I think that it's clear that prisons are not working and there has to be an alternative. There is still work that has to be done. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and hopefully I'll see you in my next one. Bye.